Welcome. I'm Carl Frederick, and I will be interviewing individuals for Kenosha Voices, an oral history project of the Kenosha County Historical Society in conjunction with Kenosha Community Media. I have worked in newspapers for more than 40 years as an editor and a reporter. 38 and a half of those years were at the Kenosha News. I am also a member of the Kenosha County Historical Society Board. We hope you enjoy these programs. I'm speaking with Myron Daniels, longtime Brighton farmer. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
How long have you been farming, or how long has your family been farming in Brighton?
The farm in the township of Brighton has been in the family name since 1882. The original abstract, a lot of it is in German, but 1882 is the date, and I am currently the fourth generation of Daniels on the farm. I have a son who's working his way into the business, so he's considered the fifth. Just been like families are police officers or soldiers, you know, father, son, grandfathers.
It's a family business.
Yeah, it's a family business. We keep keep getting into it because we just enjoy it so much.
Okay. So the first to come over to the United States came from
Germany,
and they came. How many people came at one time?
From what my recollection, from what I've been told, is there were three Daniels brothers immigrated from Germany, and they all settled within 3 miles of one another in the township of Brighton. So anybody from our end of the county, we're either a Brighton Daniels or we're a Burlington Daniels, but we're all related, and further down the tree, our roots go back to our great-great-grandfathers coming over from Germany.
Okay, and what kind of a farm was it that the Daniels started?
I think it's always been a dairy farm. There's been hogs. I can recall chickens. We had a lot of chickens when we were growing up. Of course, Mom sold eggs out the back door. We always had plenty of chicken to eat, and part of the reason we had chickens was I had a brother and sister who were hearing impaired, and part of the tuition payment was my mom and dad had a station wagon. Station wagon got loaded up with eggs every Sunday afternoon, and it went to the school to help feed the children that were all housed at the school.
And then that was used as part of the tuition payment?
But yeah,
for the
that's
school?
how Mom and Dad helped pay for tuition for my brother and sister.
Okay. Well, how big was the farm originally?
The original farm was 160 acres. Dad rented additional land in the area to grow crops for the cows that we had. When my father started in the farming business, his father had died. My grandfather had died when my dad was fairly young. He finished grade school at home to work. He had to help his mother do the work on the farm.
Basically, when he was in grade school, his father died, and he became the person to work the farm.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that's why he
homeschooled. Yeah. My grandmother was instrumental in helping a lot. There was some neighbors I can recall my dad talking about, kind of gentleman farmer down the road that he had a farm, and he helped my dad immensely in the early years. But pretty much finished grade school at home, and he was the only boy of the family. So it was his job to take care of the farm, and I guess subsequently that kept him out of World War II. You know,
Okay.
So it was
How
a good
many
thing.
cows are on the farm then?
When my dad took over in 8th grade, he had said at one time they were milking like 13 cows by hand.
Okay.
And all the milk went in milk cans into a stock tank or a tank, and it was cooled with cold water.
That part of the process was that the milk had to be chilled right away?
Yeah, it has to be chilled right away, otherwise spoilage sets in within hours if the milk is not cooled as quick as possible.
So a typical day that your father would have had back then would have looked like what?
Getting up at 5 in the morning, milking the cows, feeding the young stock, cleaning up after the cows, you know, as in from the manure from the gutter, and trying to go about daily activities, you know, depending on what time of year. You know, it was either planting or harvesting, that type of thing. If you had time, you were repairing equipment, doing what you needed to do to keep all the animals satisfied.
And then milking a second time?
Milking a second time in the afternoon, yes.
Is it always, I mean, you get up early because the cows want to be milked that early, or is it a time separation between milking?
It's, you know, for years it was you milk twice a day. So if you milked at 5 in the morning, you could milk at 5 at night. It just depended. There were some farmers that were night owls. They milked at 10 o'clock in the morning and 10 o'clock at night, but you tried to keep the 12-hour intervals in between milking at that time.
Okay. So, and when did you become involved?
I became involved, quite honestly, I graduated from Kenosha Central High School in 1974. My dad asked me if I wanted to stay on the farm, and I had aspirations of doing something else, but he strongly talked me out of it. And then I went to farm industry short course at University of Wisconsin in Madison. Learned a lot there. The farm industry short course program was designed for farm boys who could get away in the wintertime when harvesting and planting isn't going on, and to get all the highlights of what maybe a four-year ag student would get. So it started in November, and it was always done by the 1st of April, I believe. And it was several farm boys from the state of Wisconsin with dorm rooms at UW-Madison, and we got a little bit of a taste of the college life, but we learned a lot. And so pretty much 1976, 77, I was full-time.
And this was just a one-time short course?
You could go for 2 years. Okay. You know, it was a 2-year course.
Okay. Back when you were younger, you also worked on the farm? I mean,
yeah. I've never done anything but milk cows and work fields and fix machinery. I've never had to punch a time clock, good, bad, or indifferent. It's the way we were raised. If you, Dad instilled in me and the rest of the family that when work has to be done, work is done. There's always time for play later. So you just learn that if you want something done, you're going to have to do it yourself. Work ethic is a big part of being a farmer, a dairy farmer or a crop farmer.
Okay. So you mentioned a brother and a sister. Were there any other children in the family?
Yes, I'm one of 8. I'm number 6th in line. I have 2 younger sisters. I guess I was the only one that really showed an interest in the farming operation. I probably could say that my dad was a little bit of a chauvinist. Women's work was in the house and men's work was outside. So I guess there was never really anything to encourage my sisters to be involved. Okay. They came out and helped when they needed to, but they were pretty much went on to bigger and better things.
Okay, so you had 5 older siblings.
Correct.
And 2 of them were hearing impaired?
Yes.
And the other 3, did they have anything to do with the farm?
No. I had an older brother who enjoyed farming, but there wasn't enough room on the farm in the family business. He subsequently was worked in town here at America Motors, Chrysler, back then, and when he moved on to another job later. But they were all still part of the family. They were, when we had family get-togethers, they were all there, and they knew that I might be a little late or maybe not make it at all, but they understood. I would get help out of my brother once in a while.
Okay, so we go back to delivering eggs to school. Now you've had 8 kids in a station wagon, mom and dad, and a buttload of eggs.
Some of the kids stayed home, and we grew up, like I said, I mentioned my grandmother who kind of helped my dad on the farm for years. She still lived with us on the farm. So when it came to taking my older brother and sister back to Milwaukee for the week of classes, whoever wanted to ride along could, but otherwise we all stayed back by Dad and Grandma and did what we needed to do. And I think that's where my sisters and I learned our true hatred of chickens. We were in charge of, my dad would feed them, or my brothers would feed them, my older brother, but my sisters and I were in charge of picking the eggs, washing, candling eggs, make sure they were okay to go to St. John's.
Tell me what candling is.
Taking the eggs, they're dirty. You're washing the dirt off of the eggs, and then you're taking the egg and putting it behind a light. And the light will show any blood spot in the egg. And those eggs are no good. So they have to be thrown out. I'm sure my mother used them anyway, but they could not go in the egg crates to leave.
So every egg had to be
looked at in the light.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember how many eggs there were a week?
Probably 60 or 70 dozen at least. And it was all washed by hand, candled by hand, put them in the egg crates. And we did that in the basement of the house. You carried the eggs down in the egg baskets and washed them, candled them, put them in the egg crates, and then they came back up and went in the back of the station wagon.
Okay, so when your brother and sister were no longer going to that school, what did you do with all of the eggs?
The chickens left.
The chickens.
My dad had a back injury on the farm, and he spent quite a time in the hospital. We're talking 1968, 69. So the technology wasn't there that there is now in medicine. And he was probably spent a good month in the hospital, flat on his back. And my 2 older brothers would help Mom milk the cows before they went off to high school. And neither one of them liked the chickens too much. I did what I had to do. I didn't know any better. I was still in grade school. But one brother thought the other brother was doing all the feeding. And when my mom went in to see Dad one day, she said the chickens, for some reason, just quit laying. So that's when we found out that nobody was feeding the chickens. So the chickens quit laying eggs. And I think from the hospital, my dad called somebody, and I can vaguely remember a big truck in the yard loading up all the chickens, and all the chickens were gone. And after that, we turned the buildings into heifer facility. We cleaned all the chickens out, cleaned it all up, and put feeders in there for small calves. So that's what it ended up being.
Tell me a little bit about your dad.
Hardworking, man of few words, always had a smile on his face. He never had too much of an opinion about anything, but when he said something, you took it to heart, you listened, and he was just a very intelligent man. He could fix anything. He could weld anything. He could figure out how to brace when fixing something. He knew the geometry and he knew the engineering of bracing to keep things from bending and breaking. Very, very intelligent man, self-taught in almost everything. He did all his own electrical work in the barn. I can remember many a time me standing behind him with a flashlight over his shoulder while he's working in an electrical box, trying to fix something. Wonderful man.
Okay, so dairy farming is a 7-day-a-week job?
Oh, it's an 8-day-a-week job.
Yeah.
You have to be committed, and it's a lot of work. Things are getting a little easier with technology. Technology has helped out immensely, but it's still, people don't realize Christmas, Easter, New Year's Day, Super Bowl Sunday, the cows have to be milked. It's a 24/7 job, and like I say, if you don't have the work ethic for it, you're not going to do it. But times are changing. With
Or your dad worked every day?
Dad worked every day. He managed to get away deer hunting, and once in a while, a 3 or a 4-day weekend at a friend of theirs' cabin up north. But pretty much 7 days a week.
Okay. How did, with 8 kids, and how was family life? Your dad work every day, time off for? Did he work? You said he worked every day.
Yeah. Sometimes at night, play a little baseball. He made from scratch a swing set and a merry-go-round for all of us to play on. Just a lot of nights in the summer, it might have been just sitting in a chair in the backyard enjoying a cold beer when he got done and watching us or playing with us. I learned early in life that if Dad said, "You want to go for a ride," it meant he wanted to go somewhere and get some ice cream. Because at one time, I don't want to go. Well, when my sisters got back with Mom and Dad, they said they had ice cream. So I got used to going with Dad when he said, "Want to go for a ride."
So was there a lot of association between your dad and the other 2 Daniels farms?
Mostly church activities. But my dad was one of 6, and he was the only boy. We did a lot with those cousins. Always 4th of July picnic, always Christmas at someone's house. I grew up with my dad's immediate family's cousins more than the other Danielses in the area.
So you would see them regularly?
Oh yeah, at church. A lot of them were same age as me. We all went to the same schools. So we grew up together, but just socially we didn't have a lot to do with them.
Okay, so you mentioned some of the challenges that your father faced, given the circumstances of the time on the farm. How has that changed for you? What challenges do you face?
The challenges are a lot the same. They're larger, but there's more resources now to get help, to figure things out. Everything is on the internet. Everything you need to fix something, you can YouTube it. That part has changed. A lot of the challenges are the same. You still have sick animals. You're still striving to produce as much milk as you can from that cow because that's the bottom line. That pays the bills. So you're continually upgrading, continually researching. the technology is changing so fast in the dairy industry as well as any other industry that it's just amazing. It's just really amazing.
So you need to be a veterinarian of sorts.
Yes.
And how do you learn that? You learn that from your father or your grandfather?
Some from Dad, but again, there at short course at UW-Madison, I learned some of those things. And it's just, you learn that stuff. You maybe from watching the veterinarian. The veterinarian will sometimes assist you in teaching you. I know now on the farm, between I and my partner and my nephew, we know how to give cows intravenous, IV drips. We do a lot of the herd work ourselves.
So a typical day today for you
Typical
is
day
how
today.
much like what your father did or different?
It's a little different because the venture that I'm involved in now, it originally started out as 3 area farmers joining all our assets, joining all our liabilities, and we all went individually from milking 50 cows, 60 cows, and 70 cows to having a more modern freestall setup, milking parlor setup. It's much more labor efficient than the old time stanchion barn, and the cattle are much more comfortable. In the stanchion barn, they were basically locked in their stanchion all day unless they went out, for exercise. Where the new style buildings, they're called freestall buildings because their stall is deep sand bedded. So when they lay down, it's like laying, out in the grass in a pasture. And then they're free to get up, go get a drink of water, go to the bunk area to eat. So they're taken care of much better than some people are.
They learn to do this?
Oh yeah, they'll just inherit. Cattle are creatures of habit. They will adapt, they will learn, they will figure things out, I know the water's over there, I know the feed's over there, and there's a freestall I can go lay down. They adapt very well.
Okay, so what concerns do you have to take into account by having cows? You mentioned that a lot of them don't go out. I mean, it used to be cows would go out to pasture.
Yeah, that's kind of the, in the perfect world, if you could afford to do that yet, but land rents, land prices, and cattle grazing, maybe in different parts of the country, different parts of the state, it works, but in southeastern Wisconsin, it's just not feasible at this point, economically feasible. There's strength in numbers, and we've kind of adapted. The dairy industry is adapting the Walmart mentality. You have more to take care of, but the economic returns are a little better.
So you buy things in greater amounts.
We
to
buy
save
in bulk,
money.
yeah, and it's getting to the point that the dairy processors, that make the fluid milk, the cheeses and stuff, they don't want to have to stop at every farm that has 30 cows and pick up milk from each farm. They stop. There's literally at our farm now, there's tankers sitting there, and we're cooling the milk, super cooling the milk within seconds after it's out of the cow and into the tankers, and they're taking 6,000 gallons every 26 hours out from the farm. So it's just it's all boils down to economics.
Okay, taking care of the cows, are there any concerns with the cows, with weather or any other?
Cattle can handle, the summertime are more concerns with the cattle than the wintertime. Summertime is hot. They won't eat as much because they just don't feel like eating. They won't drink as much, and they'll get sicker faster in the summertime from the heat, the heat exhaustion. We treat them like athletes. They're working hard every day for us, and the better we can take care of them, the better off they are and the better off we are. But the biggest trouble is in the summertime. It's just you cannot get away from the heat. We have fans, we have water sprinklers to spray, that type of thing. We do our best to keep them clean and to keep them cool. In the wintertime, if you can keep a cow dry, she can handle all the cold Mother Nature throws at her. Because in the wintertime, they basically grow a winter coat, a heavier, bushier coat. And if you can keep that dry, it's their own Mother Nature's insulation that they have. So.
And do you do the same as your father had done? You milk twice a day?
No, that's changed also. We went to milking 3 times a day now. Instead of every 12 hours, the cows are being milked every 8 hours. The reason for that is cows of years past did not have the genetic potential, the body frame, or the high quality feeds that we have now to produce the kind of milk we're producing. For instance, back in the 70s, when I was first getting involved with Dad, we were probably averaging between 40 and 50 pounds of milk per cow per day, which equates out to about 4 to 5 gallons of milk, if that. And now we're producing milk, the cows, we're averaging 90 pounds per cow, which is over 10 gallons of milk. So we've doubled production with better genetics in the animals.
And economies of scale.
Yeah, economies of scale will fall into play.
So when you say you milk these cows on this new farm, are milked 3 times a day, who's up for 24 hours making sure every 8 hours?
We employ, I believe, 13 employees. That there's a first shift and a second shift and a third shift that come in. There's only about an hour or 2 hours, about an hour of the entire 24 hours in a day that someone is not there supervising or doing something to have an eye on the cattle.
Okay, and you mentioned this joint venture. What is it?
Back in 1997, I and 2 other gentlemen farmers in the area, we were all at a crossroads. We knew, and the trend in Wisconsin was more cows, more cows, more cows. Well, so we joined our cows together. We joined our assets. We joined our liabilities. We formed a limited liability company, and we literally built these freestall barns, and we renovated one building at my partner's farm into a milking parlor. Excuse me. They come into the parlor, they're held in a stall, the machine is put on, we harvest the milk, and then they go back to the freestall. And we're, like I said before, we're averaging almost over 90 pounds per cow.
And how many cows do you have now?
Right now we're milking about 530. And
is that more than the 3 of you had combined when you first started?
Yeah.
Okay.
When we first started, on day 1 of our LLC, we only had about 170. And we bought cows, and over the years, with some more expansion, we went to 300. And then back in 2008, we went to about 500, and now we've gone up a little bit. So we're at about 500 and between 25 and 50.
Are the 3 farms contiguous, or are they?
No, they're all within 2 miles of one another. I drive 2 miles to work every day. when we originally started this venture, it gave us the ability to specialize. Where when I farmed on my own, I was the jack of all trades. I had to do everything and could never be a master at any of them. But with this venture, I have one partner who is extremely involved in State Farm Bureau. He's really good with numbers, enjoys sitting at the computer. I fall asleep when I sit by the computer. I'd rather see my hands dirty at the end of the day. And then I had another partner, so I was in charge of the young stock, the calves, the young heifers. I enjoy that. And then I had a third partner who he really enjoyed the cropping aspect of it. And so when a fertilizer salesman came, they went and talked to him. And when somebody that had something to do with maybe some upgrading some software for the bookkeeping or the cattle, taking care of the cattle, went to Dave, went to my other partner. And when we decided we maybe need a new piece of machinery or to work on some machinery, that was my job. And any calf born on the farm was my job. So we were able to draw from our three partners' strengths and continue to move on. We just celebrated our 26th year in the business, as a partnership last summer. So.
Okay, so how has technology affected the cows themselves? I mean, you keep track of cows.
Yes.
You keep track of the milk production.
Yeah.
Okay, so you used to write that in a book?
I used to have a card for each cow, and I had them in a book. And when a cow would get sick, I'd go to the book or go to the card catalog and write in the date and think what's wrong with her, or the vet tell me what's wrong with her. I'd write that in. Now it's all computer generated. Cattle are tracked. They all wear a transponder. What we call it is a transponder. When they enter the parlor, they go through an ID looping system. The parlor automatically comes up in the computer, her number, how much milk she gave at that milking session, how long the machine was on her, and what time of day the machine was on her. And we also have activity monitors. Each cow gets a Fitbit put on their neck, and it tracks her activity in the freestall barn. And when activity goes way up, it's one of two things. She is coming into a breeding cycle, or she is out and she's running around. So that's tracked daily. That's how a lot of our artificial insemination is done, through activity of the animal.
Okay, so now you keep track of them with this computer-generated, I don't know, a chip or...
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And you don't know them by name or just by...
They all got a number. There are some farmers that, depending on how many animals they have, they know every darn one of them by name. Every one of them's got a name. Or if they are a registered animal, they have a name that's this long, and they'll have an abbreviation of that name. About 60% of our animals are registered with the Hosting Association, but we don't track them that way.
So when you used to go to the card catalog, how would you know which card to pull if you didn't have the information you now have today? I mean, how did you identify?
Back then I identified them. I had ear tags in their ears, and there was a number on the ear tag, and that's how their identification went from day one. Okay,
how has, let's say, world events or economic challenges affected dairy farming over
Oh,
the years?
it's, you know, years ago, you only heard about or were concerned about what was going on in your neighborhood as far as milk production, feed needs, you know, that type of thing. Now the world has shrunk so much, the dairy industry has become global. You know, we're trading, selling milk to China, other countries. The export market has expanded so much in the past 25 years, it's unbelievable. Like right now, part of what is affecting us is the Russians and the Ukrainians. They're fighting like crazy, and Ukraine is the largest supplier of the world's wheat and the largest supplier of the world's potash, a fertilizer that every farmer in the world uses. So all those prices have been driven way up because they can't combine or harvest their wheat or plant their wheat because of the war over there. So if you were growing wheat over here, it's even corn and soybeans. The markets have just been crazy the past 4 or 5 years because of volatility and uncertainty in other parts of the world. China is a huge importer of American farmer products. Soybeans, corn, a lot of countries, dried whey products from the milk, dried milk, milk powders, that type of thing. Huge.
And how about economic changes? How do they affect? Does the price of oil affect you at all?
Oh, that's price of oil is immense because we're using, you know, the equipment that we're running in the fields using diesel fuel. My farm truck running around, running errands for the farm. Natural gas and propane for heating some of the buildings have to be heated. It's just all such an integral part of everything. One of the biggest challenges with the dairy industry now is the soft drinks, oat milk, soy milk. It's not really milk, it's juice, but at any rate, right now the dairy industry is trying to fight that it can't be called milk, it's got to be called juice. People are looking for alternatives to milk, but you cannot reproduce milk. Scientists know it's all in milk, but it cannot be reproduced. Cheese, butter, it's making a comeback, really doing well.
Okay, when you read or hear about studies about how good milk is, or maybe you shouldn't be drinking homogenized milk, vitamin D milk, how does that affect your business?
It's all the consumer. What the consumer wants, we try and do what the consumer wants. I mean, 25 years ago, the big rage was Posilac, which is a BGH hormone that you would inject in the cow, and it didn't change the milk composition, it didn't change the amount of BGH that is already in the cow, but it would make her hungrier. So she subsequently would eat 15% more feed, but studies showed that you could get 20% more milk. So there was a lot of farmers using it, including us, years ago. And then consumer pressure, you know, people didn't want the BGH, and then there was BGH-free milk, and that Posilac has literally gone by the wayside again. And in all reality, when we were on it, we weren't making a whole lot more milk than we are now. But through technology and science, they figured out how to change feeds to get more milk. And plant science has improved feed quality from the field to the storages, and cows are just naturally making more and better milk without all the hormone implants. So we've subsequently gotten away from it.
And technology has affected, you mentioned feed and fertilizer.
Yeah.
But their costs have gone way up.
Yes, immensely. When I first started farming with my dad, you could plant, fertilize, and spray an acre of corn for right around $125 per acre. Now that number is up over $650 to $700 per acre in input costs before you even have a crop off of it.
Okay, and do you grow all of the basic food that the cows need on the new farm?
All the corn and alfalfa, we grow all that on the farm. Some feed additives like protein supplements that enhance the calories in the rations, the feed for the cows. That is commercially purchased. For the most part, we grow everything. Everything stays on the farm. And then all the waste from the cows, you know, the manure, that's all stored. And every 6 months, we're hauling it to the field and injecting as much as we can into the field, so there's less chance of runoff, pollution to the neighborhood streams. We have very, very strict guidelines as to where we can spread manure. We have to stay 1,000 feet away from any creek or navigable water. We have to document all applications so that if it would arise that something went wrong, there's pollution in the area, we have to document where, when, and how we applicated that manure.
Okay. How do you protect yourselves against downturns? I mean, there used to be a time where there was too much milk and they'd be dumping the milk without selling it. Now, circumstances are not like that anymore.
Yeah. We forward contract. There's milk buyers out there that they want to have their needs locked in for the next 6 months to a year. So they're selling contracts for milk. So that's where we're protecting about 65 to 75% of our production. We estimate what our production is for the next year, and then we lock in contracts so we know what we're getting for our milk 3, 6, 9 months down the road.
You lock in a price.
Correct.
To a futures buyer.
Yep.
Okay. What do you like about farming?
Being my own boss. You have a lot of responsibilities. You do what you need to do. And I've never punched a clock in 66 years. I just turned 66. I've never had to go to the wall in the building and run my name through a time clock. We know what our responsibilities are, and we can do it when we want to. It takes us 2 days, 3 days, or it takes hardly any time at all. It's just in theory, we don't have to answer to anyone except the banker, that type of thing, business aspects of it. But it's just been a life where my kids have grown up on the farm and learned 4 kids. They've all learned responsibilities with animals through 4-H. They've been strong 4-Hers all their lives. I met my wife at the Kenosha County Fair, and fair time is something my grandkids completely look forward to, because they'll pick out young heifers or buy market hogs to raise and sell at the fair. The dairy animals are cleaned, trained, taken to the fair, shown, and brought back home. I lived for it. My dad told me at one time, well, that's your vacation. So every year, fair time, I'd pack a suitcase down to Wilmot, Wisconsin, and trucking company would take a couple of heifers that I had been working with, and I would spend the 5 days of the fair with my animals and with my friends. And my kids enjoyed that. My grandkids are just having a blast doing it also. So it's just a fun place to be, and memories. You know, like I said, I met my wife there. Good, bad, or indifferent, but we'll be married 47 years in about 3 months.
Okay, how do you see the future of farming?
Technology, technology, technology. We have to continue to strengthen consumer confidence in our product. We do the best job we can, the best job that we know how, with making our animals safe, making our animals healthy, keeping them happy, and they'll reward us with good milk production. So gaining and retaining consumer confidence is a huge thing. And it's just keeping up. You know, technology has done so much and changed things so much. It's unbelievable. I never thought I would be married to an iPhone that I have on my side 24/7. Just with information, the applications that you can do with a phone that are ag-related are unbelievable. With, like I said, with the Fitbits and the activity monitors on animals, I've got app on my phone. Anytime a cow comes in heat, it'll come up on my phone, and it's just, technology is making things easier, yes, but you still have to be there. You still got to do the work. Technology is helping. I think in 20 years, if technology grows at all like it has in the past 20, it's just going to be utterly amazing. It will be.
And a good future for someone to be in.
You know, there's highs and lows, just like American Motors factory workers. You know, all of a sudden they got a 1 month layoff because they can't sell cars. It's the exact same thing in the dairy and ag industry. You have to ride the highs, be conservative, and when the lows hit, you got to tighten your belt loop one more time and hope that everything you can get through and get things done, and maybe worry about some upgrades on machinery when the highs come around again. So I think a lot of people don't realize that, you know, even the average size of farm in the state of Wisconsin right now is about 180 to 200 cows. But that, like us, our 550 cows, it supports 4 families. There's I and another partner, and then I have a son and a nephew who are becoming involved in the business. We've got 4 families, 4 family mouths to feed. And you strive to do the best you can, and you continue with that.
And when you formed this partnership, you had your farm, another farm, and a third. How did you decide what to call the farm? And what is the farm today?
The farm today, I still have control of my acreage, and the other partners, is what it ends up being. The way we set it up was the LLC leased the land from me, and they leased the land from my other 2 partners.
Okay.
And those land leases would pretty much cover what I had to pay the banker to continue to own my farm.
So this, does the LLC have a name?
Mighty Grand Dairy, LLC.
Mighty Grand Dairy.
And the Mighty Grand Dairy came from, my name is Myron, that's where the Mighty came from. A partner, Gene Weiss, who has since retired the past few years, his Gene, G, was Grand, and the Mighty Grand Dairy was Dave. He's the other partner. That's him and I are still partners. We just thought it was, we had all three names, all three letters involved, and that's what it
How
came
did you
up.
come up with that name?
I just thought of it one night. We were having you know, business sessions on, you know, what we can do, because we had a business plan that had to be written up and taken to a banker to finance this whole thing. I mean, there's pages and pages and pages of financial reports, that type of thing. And then when we came up with a name, we thought of MGD Farms, Myron, Gene, and Dave, but we needed to put, and it just all of a sudden, one of us blurted out Mighty Grand Dairy, and it kind of stuck, and that's what it is.
Thank you for talking with me today.
My pleasure.